The Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Saskatchewan Pulse Growers and Nodulator XL.
Well, it's important to treat seed in order to control the diseases that might be present on the seed or that you might have in your soil. It just helps your crop get off to a good start and prevent those diseases for a couple of weeks, but that should be enough time to give your crop what it needs in order to go through the rest of the season a little bit healthier.
When should I, or how do I know that I should treat my seed?
Well, you can have your seed tested at a seed testing lab, and we see some of the variety of diseases that might show up. You'll get in your seed testing report. If you have, for example, more than 10% of botrytis, sclerotinia, fusarium, or ascochyta on peas, then you should consider a seed treatment. Or if you have more than 5% ascochyta on lentils, or if you have more than 0.3% ascochyta on chickpeas, then you'd want to consider using a seed treatment. You'd also want to consider a seed treatment if, for any reason, you believe that there is a high level of disease pressure in your field. So maybe you've had some of these issues before, you've had root rot issues or seedling disease issues in the past, then you know that there is going to be some inoculum pressure also out in the field, and you'd want to consider a seed treatment in that case as well. Seed treatments can kind of be a bit of an insurance policy for your seed. So if after planting there's some adverse stressful conditions on the plants, then the seed treatment can help prevent some of the root rot issues from getting in during that period of time that your crop is establishing.
What are some of the things that I need to consider in terms of choosing a seed treatment, I guess, in general?
Well, there's a number of different options, and you can look in your crop protection guide for your province in order to see what some of those options might be. Within that, you can find out which product controls what diseases, and so make sure that it is registered for the disease that you're concerned about on the crop that you're growing. From there, really the important thing is getting good coverage on your seed. So if it's the appropriate product and you've used it properly, then you should get the results that you're looking for. So it's not so much important what product that you're choosing as it is it registered and are you applying it appropriately?
Is the coverage just a visual thing? Like, how do I assess good coverage on my seed treatments?
Well, it is visual. We can see in some examples here of some pea seed that was treated. For example, these first two here, they're just treated by two different types of equipment. But basically you can see how speckled they look. These don't have good coverage. So if you don't have good coverage in the seed, especially if it's a contact product that actually requires coming into contact with the pathogen that you're concerned about, then you're not going to get as good of disease control. So if you don't have good coverage on that seed, you're not going to get the results that you want. So visually we can tell that those ones don't have very good coverage, whereas these ones do have good coverage. So there's more solid color there. That helps that the seed treatments that we use do have that dye in them, so you can get a bit of a better visual look on there. And so if you have good coverage, then you've got every part of the seed that could come into contact with a pathogen is covered with that seed treatment. And so again, as I said, with contact products, everything there is protected. There are diseases that are systemic, and systemic seed treatments, it's still important to have good coverage, but it's not quite as critical.
So if we see that our coverage isn't all that good, some of the options are slowing it down, the process?
Yeah, so it really comes with experience, but what you can do is you can slow down the flow of the seed going into the seed treater. You always want to make sure that the rate of your seed treatment is appropriate, so make sure that it matches what's on the label. You don't want to skimp when it comes to seed treatment because of the importance of that coverage. If you have a water-soluble seed treatment, then you can do something like add water, so you still have the same rate of the active ingredient of the product, but by adding water you can help it mix a little bit better. So slowing down the flow of the seed also can increase the mixing time as it's going up through the auger. So getting good coverage of the seed treatment as it's being applied, but then also proper mixing without over mixing and damaging the seed. Find that balance and then take a look at your seed as it's coming out at the end and look to see, do you have good coverage there, and then just make adjustments as you go. So it could even just be the calibration of the seed treatment equipment that you have, depending on what type of equipment that you're using.
Say we did apply a seed treatment but we're still seeing seedling disease showing up. What do we do to figure out what it is and what we can do about it?
Yeah, so certainly even when we do everything right, given what's out in the field or the environmental conditions, we can still get diseases that are showing up. So maybe after that first couple weeks or after we apply the seed treatment, or just there's a high level of disease pressure out there. So you can have either an agronomist come out, look at your field and see what they think, or you can collect a sample and send it to a lab. So both Saskatchewan and Manitoba have provincial labs that will do testing for disease. They'll also do testing for insect identifications and weed identifications as well. But when we're talking about disease issues, you can collect a sample, preferably collect it as fresh as possible and have it and sent away as quickly as possible too. So if the plant is already dead, you're not going to be able to really tell what the issue was. But if it's just starting to show symptoms, then a lab can actually isolate or identify what the disease issue is. So collect a sample fresh. Most labs will have a form that you can fill out, include as much detail in that information sheet as possible, because the more information that we have, the easier it is to determine what the issue was, because there's always clues as to what was going on in the field that can help us determine what the issue was as well, in addition to actually being able to isolate pathogens. So those are just some options that you can use. It's not necessarily going to help you manage the disease in the field season, especially if it's something like a seedling blight or a root rot. There's nothing really that you can do for that. You can't apply a fungicide when the issue is really below the ground like that. But identifying it can help you determine whether there's something that you can do in the future. So maybe if you didn't use a seed treatment and you get those issues showing up and you identify what the problem was, then you can use a seed treatment that's appropriate for that disease issue in the future.